Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to take a deep dive into snooker's most played shot and my least favourite, the breakoff. Alright then guys, well let's get into it. Let's have a real hard look at the breakoff. Of course it's the most played shot, isn't it? Every single frame starts with the breakoff, and aren't there just so many different varieties? There's so much in this shot. That's the thing people say to me all the time, because the breakoff could be your last shot. It's the first shot, but it could also be your last. And they say to me, people, they say, how come you can't get the breakoff right every single time? Well, it's a very, very complex shot. There's a lot going on in the breakoff. And you'll have heard, certainly at pro level, you'll have heard us talk about conditions and how those conditions affect certain shots. There's hardly a shot in snooker that's affected more by conditions than the breakoff. There's so many things to take into consideration when you're trying to get this cue ball down the other end of the table, into the other reds, around the cushions, and back to this cushion here at the baulk end of the table, whether it's that side or this side. There's so many things that can go wrong with this shot. I'm going to start by trying to show you what I consider to be like the basic breakoff. What I'm trying to achieve, what I'm trying to avoid, and let's get into that and see. We're going to have a look at a lot of different type of shots. We're going to move the cue ball. I like it to be close to the brown either side. I don't mind whether I break off next with the yellow side or green side. I don't really mind, and I do like to vary it. See, a lot of players, they break off from the same side all the time. Maybe they're trying to look for that consistent result. But, when we play on the tour, we go around the world, the tables don't play the same in every city, in every venue, even day by day they change. So you have to, in my opinion, vary where you start from to vary the result. Now, on this table, I've referred to many, many times, Stephen Hendry said it was the most reactive table he's ever played on. What that means is when you spin the ball, that spin stays on for a lot longer, and these cushions are what we call slippy, they're slidey. That means that when we break off, and in my mind's eye I'm trying to get the cue ball in behind the yellow here to block the attack for the long red that I'll probably leave on for my opponent, it's very hard to get that cue ball here on this particular table. The cue ball often finishes up there. I might get a good length of cue ball, but it's very hard to get the cue ball in behind the baulk colour. So what you've started to see some players doing on the tour is that, knowing that these cushions can play on what we call the slidey side, the angle slides off, the cue ball slides off the cushion at an unnatural angle. They've started over-hitting that cue ball in an attempt to get it to run off the side cushion and in behind a baulk colour. Sometimes people think that players have done that by mistake. Actually, there's a lot of players who are now doing that on purpose. They're no longer trying to get the cue ball here because getting it in at this angle is too difficult on these tables. If you go back and watch a lot of historic footage of snooker, maybe to the 70s, 80s, even in the 90s, the tables were different. The cloth was different. The balls were different. And the angle at which the cue ball came off those cushions was different. There's an old video somewhere of the break-off where the player breaks off and the reds almost go back together how they were and the cue ball comes back into there. That's almost impossible to achieve on these tournament standard tables now with the cloths that we use and the this, that and the other. Anyway, let's get into it. Let's break off and see what happens. I'm going to play this break off as I would normally play it. I'm going to play what I consider to be a standard break off. That's to strike the cue ball with as much left-hand side as I can possibly get on. That's when you're breaking off from the green side of the brown. If you were yellow side of the brown, it would be right-hand side. We'll have a look at that one as well, because you've got to be able to play both shots, in my opinion. I'm trying to hit the end red. Years ago, players used to play off the second red, and I'll play the second red break off later, and you can see why we don't do that with today's modern conditions. That's a total no-no. You could play that in the 80s. You can't play it on today's tables. And so I'm playing with a load of left-hand side. I'm just below the middle of the cue ball, so there's a bit of backspin on the cue ball as well. Although the cue ball's propelling forward, there is an element of backspin. That throws the cue ball wider off the end red, and that cue ball wants to go off the back cushion off the side cushion. That left-hand side gets in play now, brings the cue ball between pink and blue, sorry, onto this cushion, and I'm trying to finish in this zone, somewhere up here. But, as I say, on the modern tables, it's very, very difficult to get that cue ball there. I'm going to leave my chalk there as a guide, as a reference to where I'm actually trying to get this cue ball to finish. So let's play the shot. End red, loads of left-hand side on the cue ball, fizz it round the angles, and see how close to the chalk we can get. Here it comes. It's slid off the first cushion. It's caught that side cushion. And it's nowhere near where I tried to get. I actually caught the red quite nicely. I haven't left the long red down the side cushion. That means that I caught the red quite thick. It means I caught the red as I wanted to. But you can see how hard it is to get that cue ball in at that angle. Let's reset and have another go. Okay, so that was take one. I'm going to have take two. I'm going to play exactly the same shot. I'm not going to change anything. And this is to demonstrate how you can play the same shot with the same reds on the same table and sometimes get a totally different result. I'm not going to move the cue ball. I'm going to play the shot in exactly the same way, hit the end red. I'm going to play the cue ball back. I'm still trying to get it to where the chalk is. Loads aside. Now let's see where this cue ball finishes. It's coming at a slightly different angle. It's hit down here on the cushion and it's still finished wide of the mark. But if I can tell you, if that were my result after a break-off in a match, I'd be very, very happy with that. That red has come off the side cushion, not available for a long pot attack. That red hasn't come up past the blue because I didn't catch it too thick. That's actually, for me, on today's modern tables with the conditions that we use at pro level, and it's important that you remember that at pro level, that's what I'm talking about, I'm going to take that as a really good break-off. Let's reset the reds and try something different. Okay, so we've reset the reds, and for the third shot, I'm going to try and play the same shot but on the other side. So I'm going to put the cue ball, this time the yellow side of the brown, and I'm going to play exactly the same but use the other red on the other side of the table, and this time, because I'm yellow side, I have to play it with right-hand side. That's the only thing that changes on this shot. Let's see what difference it makes here. Just below the middle, loads of right-hand side, and hit that end red. Here comes the cue ball. That red I've struck has travelled a bit further up the table than I wanted. Have I left it on to the middle? I have. I've left that red and I've left the long red. If that were in a match, that would be ticked down as a poor break-off. Didn't do much wrong there. I just caught the red that fraction thick, and that's dragged that red back up the table. That could be my last shot. Reset, go again. So there's a couple of examples of the break-off. That's single red, that's the end red, that's one position of the cue ball. Let's do something different now. Let's change one variable, because that's important. As you're trying to learn these shots, as you're trying to improve one particular shot, when you make changes, just change one thing at a time and see what happens. Don't go changing 2, 3 and 4 different things at once, because then you don't know which of those changes is responsible for the improvement, or the shot might get worse. So I'm going to go to what I like to do, which is the green side of the brown, and instead of being next to the brown there, I'm going to move the cue ball into the middle of the gap between the brown and green. That gives me a little bit more of that end red to hit now. I can see just that little bit more of it. So if I do hit it slightly too thick, that red now might come back up the table, but it gives me a better chance of getting in here. Let's see what happens now. Not changing anything else except where the cue ball starts from. Still loads of side spin on the cue ball. Watch that red, and as you can see, it's come so far up the table, it's actually collided with the cue ball. The only thing I did differently there was move the cue ball into the middle of that gap. I actually caught that red really nicely. As I hit it, I thought that was going to be okay. But by moving that cue ball so far out, gave me that little bit more of the red to hit. And it's actually, well, I mean, in the end it's worked out okay because I haven't left the red on. That's luck more than judgment. This cue ball's finished miles away and, you know, we're going to have to go again. Regroup. Okay, I hear you ask. When the break-off becomes so risky, why don't you just play thin off the end red plain ball? Why do we bring in the complicated assets to the shot? Why do we bother doing that? Why don't we just play plain ball off the end red and see where they go. Well, let's see what happens. Put the cue ball wide out by the green this time. That gives us the best opportunity to get a nice thin quarter ball, if not slightly thinner contact on that end red. I'm not going to play this with any side spin. The cue ball will come up this side of the table. Depending on how thick or thin I hit the red, it will either go past the green this side or it will come in here and I risk colliding with the brown. Let's see what happens with the reds here. No side spin, just top spin, quarter ball on the end red, and let's see what happens. And I've hit the brown full in the face. But as you can see, I've not left the red. Now, do you know what? If you could guarantee that that was going to be the result of every time you broke off from there, playing it that way, that's not a bad idea to do that, because I've not done any danger at all. I've not brought any danger into the shot. There's no risk attached with that. It's just not very pretty. And if you do that in the club with anyone who can play, you're going to be judged quite hardly, I'm afraid. There's a bit of judgment in snooker. If you play the thin-edged plain ball break-off, everyone will think, doesn't know how to break off. When actually, when you look at the facts, it's not a bad shot. Let's reset them, and I'm going to play the old-fashioned 80s second red break-off, and let's see what happens there. So, if after you've watched this video, you track back through YouTube or you find some footage from somewhere else of a match from the 80s, where you watch all of those great players from yesteryear play, and of course all the frames start the same way with this shot. Most of them used to break off, as we're doing here now, still spinning the cue ball in the same way, but they would always try and hit the second to last red. We now break off and use the end red. They used to break off and hit the second to last red. But a lot's changed since the 80s. And one of the things that's changed, aside from the cloth we use is different, still green, but in every other way it's different. The cushions have changed, the rubbers have changed, the steel blocks have changed, but these balls we use now are a lot lighter, and they throw off each other in a totally different manner than they did in the 80s with the balls that they used when they were playing those really old matches, you know, where they were at it all day. They were just playing and battering each other with hard safety, hard break building. Mainly the game was harder because these balls were heavier. Now, there's a lot of innuendo in this video, which you're just going to have to ignore. But let's push on. I'm going to break off here where I would normally break off, next to the brown, and I'm going to hit the second to last red on that pack. I'm not going to do anything different. I'm going to break off exactly as I would do normally with the same spin. I'm going to try and get the same result, but instead of hitting the end red as I would do normally, I'm going to hit the second to last red. Let's see what happens here. These reds are going to go everywhere. Watch out for that cue ball, because I think that cue ball might go near the pocket. I hate being right. And that is why we now, in the modern game, don't break off like they used to in the 80s. You can see the results of that shot. The reds have spread far and wide, and if you could get that cue ball around the table back to the cushion, that wouldn't be too bad a break, because you've opened the game up, you've put your player amongst it, you've put them under pressure. But because these balls we use today are so much lighter than they used to be, that shot isn't really available for us. Let's re-rack them and try something else. I was, to finish the video, going to do what's been called the Mark Williams break-off in recent years, where you just play off the back cushion first, you miss the reds, and rest into the back of the cluster. But do you know what? I simply can't bring myself to do it. Can't do it. So, to finish the video, I'm going to have one final go at what I consider to be the traditional break-off. For those of you taking notes, get your pens out, write this down. This is the last red of the apex. Trying to hit as much of it as I can, really, and risk bringing it back up the table to get the cue ball on this angle. Although we've seen that that's very hard, particularly on this table. Loads of left-hand side, just below the middle. And let's have one final go at the most important shot of any frame. That red holds up. That's a good break. I'm really pleased with that one. That's a great result. Well, I've had loads of practice at that shot, haven't I, in this video? I should be good at it by now. Guys, if you've enjoyed this video, let me know. Let me know in the comments what you struggle with the breakoff. What other shots you'd like to see me demo. Tap that like button. It helps me make more videos and more content for you. If you aren't already subscribed to the channel, subscribe to it now. It's free. It's totally free. What else is free? What else in the world is free and as good as this? Hit the subscribe button. You'll help me out. It'll help your game out, and I'll see you on the next video.